And as a matter of fact, to claim that a fetus is not a human life or whatever, that is absurd. That is the earliest stage of a human life. And when you're aborting it out of your body, and they'll say all the time, my body, my choice. Listen, I don't care what you do with your body. What I care about is what you do with the body that's inside of your body. You know, the one that deserves the chance at life the same as you got. I just don't want you to kill them before they ever get a chance to experience this wonderful thing that we call life. Maybe their life sucks. Maybe it's awesome. You don't get to decide that. You're not God.
Well, technically nobody's God because that fuck probably doesn't exist. But still, you can't say, I don't care what you do with your body, but then also say that you do care what they do with their body. Because whether he likes it or not, that woman is still in charge of her body, regardless of whether or not there's a fetus inside. And that fetus is part of her body until that fetus can become viable outside the womb. And yes, a fetus is living human tissue, but that doesn't mean it has an inherent right to life. A woman should be able to choose what happens if she finds herself to be pregnant. This entire issue is not about the life of the infant or anything like that, because as we all know, conservatives really don't give a shit about children. They don't give a shit about what happens to babies, children, or people in general.
Pro-life conservatives are obsessed with the fetus from conception to 9 months. After that, they don't want to know about you. They don't want to hear from you. No nothing. No neonatal care, no daycare, no Head Start, no school lunch, no food stamps, no welfare, no nothing. If you're preborn, you're fine. If you're preschool, you're fucked.
Before they're born, these people are always like, well, you can't abort it. That's a life. You gotta have it. And so now they're making laws that will force women to have a baby. If you don't remember, a 10-year-old girl was told by a judge that she was going to be forced to have a child. Except she got her ass to Indiana where she had an abortion, which was the right call. Because a 10-year-old child should not be having a baby. But people like Adam Rich, they want to force every woman that happens to become pregnant to give birth to a child, while at the same time slut-shaming women that do become pregnant out of wedlock. It's not any of my business to know why somebody became pregnant, only that they should have the ability to choose whether or not to carry that pregnancy to term. Adam thinks that that person should be forced to give birth to a baby that they most likely don't want, if they're wanting an abortion, that is.
And this is another thing. They believe in the whole primordial soup thing. This is where life came from. They have never, ever, ever demonstrated or seen lightning strike a soup and mix in chemicals and make a life. Yet they say that this is the actual theory.
No, this is not what we say is the actual theory. There's actual multiple hypotheses about how life first evolved. You have the RNA world idea as well as several others. Now, the RNA world idea says that RNA developed first, which then developed into DNA, and that's when life first arose. There are several different ways in which life to arise. Now, we have seen in a lab setting, so in a scientific experiment, we have seen amino acids, the building blocks to life, form on their own. And in separate scientific experiments, we've seen them self-organize. Given that everything in nature has happened naturally without the need for God, and we have several stepping stones that show us that life could have developed in an abiogenic manner, that means that life most likely developed without the need of a God. Now again, these are the scientific findings of the scientific community. So him saying, oh, they just believe lightning struck a puddle of stuff, and then boom, humans popped up out of it. It's almost like he's saying this.
Smoke weed every day. Smoke weed every day.
And no, that's not scientific, and it's not what anybody in the scientific community says. So again, he has stated how unscientific his ideas actually are, further proving that he, as an individual, is a science denier.
They believe this stuff. Now, the only thing we've ever actually seen is that a life comes from wait for it, a previous life, a previous mind being involved. So it's more scientific to think that God would create life, a previous mind creating the new ones like us, than it is to think that some lightning hit water and all of a sudden chemicals turned into people.
Again, that's not what the science says. What science says is that life would have developed slowly over time through chemical reactions that happened that eventually developed into DNA and eventually developed into single-celled organisms, and then it took off from there. So, if you really wanted to describe the scientific idea, that's what you would go with, not lightning struck puddles of water and created human beings. That's, again, not what science says. But more to the point, what he's alluding to here is Louis Pasteur and his experiment where he showed that flies come from other flies, and he developed this idea that life comes from life and life doesn't come from dead rotting meat, which was the prevailing idea at the time, which in more scientific terms would be spontaneous generation. If you don't know what that is, that's basically what Christians say happened. That's a Christian idea, spontaneous generation. God wiggled his nose, flicked his dick, and snapped his fingers, and everything was created spontaneously. So what did Louis Pasteur do? Louis Pasteur disproved the idea of spontaneous generation. He did not disprove the idea of abiogenesis, which is the current hypothesis about how life would have developed.
It's not science, people. But if you dare disagree with them, you may be canceled. Stay classy.
Well, your ass hasn't been canceled yet, and you consistently spout off unscientific ideas. You affirm that the global flood happened, you affirm creationism, so you affirm all of these ideas that are definitely unscientific. Also, in the political arena, you have many unscientific ideas from there that deviate from the scientific consensus that is already established, like the fact that a fetus is not a person yet, and that's just how words work. All of these things show that he is indeed an unscientific individual. What I have found with these types of people is that they are eager to tell you how unscientific they are. Every time they say, oh, you're not following the science, I can guarantee you that you probably are, and they are the ones that are denying the real science while clinging on to whatever kind of conservative Christian science that was put out by fucking Ken Ham or something. All in all, I found his video here to be quite unscientific and only prove my point that Adam Rich is an unscientific individual who holds unscientific ideas. And he chooses to retain those unscientific ideas even though he has the entire world's knowledge base at his fingertips. Which leads me to believe that these are things he wants to believe and not things that are true.